Democrats and Republicans are finally working together again to bring about a new CARES Act relief bill, some kind of stimulus package to help with all the unemployment and the general struggle that the American people are facing right now. And I have to say, it is about time. This has long been overdue between the bickering from both sides of the aisle, between Nancy Pelosi holding up Congress for weeks at a time before the election, to Mitch McConnell. I have to say, I am sick of hearing about it. I am sick of listening to it. It is time that they need to just really put their politics aside and try to get something done for the American people. We have suffered enough this year, and thankfully, I believe the time has finally come. I will obviously read this with cautious optimism, but it is looking good, at least better than it has been. Here we go. Bipartisan group of senators announces $908 billion stimulus plan aiming to break partisan logjam. A bipartisan group of senators introduced a stimulus proposal worth about $908 billion on Tuesday, aiming to break a months-long partisan impasse over providing emergency federal relief to the U.S. economy. Congress has faced increasing pressure to approve additional economic relief since talks between the White House and House Democrats collapsed, first over the summer and then again in the fall ahead of the November 3rd presidential election. That was when Nancy Pelosi was stalling and trying to jam in universal mail-in ballot bills and trying to take more from Republicans at that time. With negotiations among congressional leaders at a standstill, senators in both parties have worked together for weeks on a proposal that could break the logjam. Thank God. Several centrist lawmakers in the Senate, including Joe Manchin, Bill Cassidy, Mark Warner, Mitt Romney, and Susan Collins. I don't know that I would call Mitt Romney centrist. He's pretty far right. Not far right, but he's an establishment Republican. Held a news conference Tuesday morning to push their proposal as a template for legislation that could pass Congress as the economy faces increasing strain from a winter surge in coronavirus cases. Our action to provide emergency relief is needed now more than ever. The people need to know that we are not going to leave until we get something accomplished, Manchin said, flanked by about half a dozen lawmakers at the Capitol. I'm committed to seeing this through. The plan circulated by the bipartisan group is light on details, but seeks to reach a middle ground on the numerous contentious economic issues. I know that in general, the Republicans have tended to favor lower weekly payments and favor favor small businesses, whereas the Democrats seem to favor individuals and larger weekly payments and unemployment benefits. Here we go. It would provide $300 a week in federal unemployment benefits for 4 months, a lower amount than the $600 per week Democrats sought, while still offering substantial relief to tens of millions of jobless Americans. The agreement includes $160 billion in funding for state and local governments, a key Democratic priority opposed by most Republicans, as well as a temporary moratorium on some coronavirus-related lawsuits against firms and other entities, a key Republican priority that most Democrats oppose. The measure also includes funding for small businesses, schools, healthcare, transit authorities, student loans, among other measures. Student loans. Interesting. Aides close to the effort describe details as fluid and subject to change. I really dislike that. I really dislike when the media uses something along those lines where they say a source close to the president or a source familiar with. Don't do that, because they've really overused that when they've been bashing Trump for the last 4 years. So it's really sort of worn out its welcome, and usually indicates to me that they don't actually know what's going on, or are using it as an excuse to blatantly lie. So, but this is the Washington Post, so that's the kind of top-notch journalism you can be expecting from them. The effort still faces enormous hurdles, and most congressional aides are skeptical that the push will succeed. President Trump's negotiators have remained at odds for months, with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, of course, over multiple critical aspects of stimulus legislation, while Senate Republican led by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who also has not been particularly great, were broadly uncomfortable with the amount of spending the White House pushed at times. The substantiative efforts at a compromise in the Senate reflect growing agitation from influential senators against the hardline stances of their respective leaders, who have struggled to reach another round of coronavirus relief aid as the economy continues to suffer under the weight of the pandemic. And it has. There's a lot of people struggling. A lot of businesses are shutting down, and people don't know how to are afraid they're going to get evicted. McConnell and Schumer have traded barbs with McConnell on Monday, accusing Democrats of all or nothing, blah, blah. This is just more of the back and forth bullshit. It's more of the bickering, it's more of the arguing and not agreeing. Some lawmakers have hoped that elements of a bipartisan stimulus deal could be added to the spending bill required to avoid a December 11th government shutdown. Although that could complicate the must-pass legislation. This happened once before. I believe it was 2013, was it? 2013, 2014, I want to say, when we had that government shutdown because Harry Reid was at ends with, can't remember the guy's name right now. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said he was scheduled to talk to Pelosi on Tuesday afternoon. They are expected to discuss both the must-pass government spending bill and stimulus efforts. Not, like I said, cautious optimism. I had a conversation yesterday afternoon as well as in the morning with Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, myself, and Mark Meadows. Spoke to the president this morning and updated him. I'll be speaking to Speaker Pelosi this afternoon about the government funding. We all believe there should be a targeted fiscal response. That it's actually surprising that they're kind of all on the same page about that. Mnuchin said he would review the coronavirus relief package. I do think that a more fiscal response is needed. I think that's more important than what we can pass quickly, but it's a bipartisan basis to target the most difficult parts of the economy. That's fair. Again, they're working together, so some compromises are going to have to be made here. When asked if he supported the $908 billion stimulus proposal, Biden told reporters, "I just heard about it. I'll take a look when I get back." Asked if he had spoken to Mitch McConnell, he said not yet. At the news conference, Romney stressed that he is a deficit hawk and that the proposal costs far less than the $1.8 trillion that White House officials pushed earlier. Jesus Christ. He also said the legislation would be partly funded by more than $500 billion in unspent money from the CARES Act, reducing the amount of new spending, so at least that's somewhat of a plus. Doesn't surprise me at all that Romney would consider himself a deficit hawk. He's a businessman first and a politician second, so it makes sense that he would be a little bit more conscientious of that. Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, it's kind of random, spoke positively of the bipartisan effort and urged lawmakers to quickly approve emergency financial help. More will be needed later, but immediate relief is needed now, she said. That's what the senators are talking about. We cannot wait. And I agree. It has long been overdue. The American people have been asking for it since the last one passed in, what was it, I believe June or July. It is time. People are really struggling right now between all the lockdowns happening and people having to shut down their businesses, people getting laid off. And, that's obviously an argument, a conversation unto itself. But the fact is, people are struggling right now. COVID has had a detrimental effect on the economy, unless you're rich. So, yeah, I think it's about time. Put the politics aside, guys. Put the partisanship aside. Work together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we need you guys to do something. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please do consider liking and subscribing, sharing this video. I don't have any large news agencies backing me up or a huge budget to cover expenses. My videos travel entirely by word of mouth, so the best way you can help out the channel is by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really, really does help the channel out tremendously, and I would personally greatly appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, and remember, gotta get that money.
Gigi, I've decided not to leave this town. Maybe I can stay and find some other nice people who will like me and accept me for who I am.
Trusting your spirit, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.